I'm Jacob Courtwright, and this is The Locker Room.
Sure, I didn't put my makeup on, but hello and welcome into College Pick'ems with the boys. We are so glad to finally be back via video. I appreciate all the love and support for this because we got a lot of angry messages wanting this back, and it is here. Like I said, we are going nowhere, so thank you all for staying patient with us. Today, not only do I have somebody that is family, not only do I have somebody that I consider one of my best friends, but I have a Oregon Duck lover as well. Mr. Steven Hines, welcome to the show. Our Ducks play in just a few short weeks, so we are very excited about that. Welcome to the show, sir.
Hey, thanks for having me, bud. I appreciate it.
Hey, I couldn't have think of anybody else when it comes to college football. All of our nights of staying up till 2 and 3 in the morning watching Ducks games, eating pizza rolls, playing garbage can basketball, whatever we decided to do to keep ourselves awake and busy is what we've had to do. Our many trips to see Ducks games across the country.
Yep.
I mean, when I think of college football, I think of you. So I'm very excited of having you on the show. We are going to go right into it today because we've got some great matchups. We're going to start off with number 14, Texas A&M versus number 2, Alabama. Now, Texas is coming off a very sluggish start to the season. As many of us know, only a 17-point win against Vandy last week. Several turnovers, several penalties. It was a sloppy game. Several lost yardage plays on the offensive side of the ball. Their line didn't play well. Bama rolled. Like always, Bama came out and played Missouri High School, completely dominated. Everybody expected Bama to win that game, but I did not expect it to be that big of a smackdown. Mac Jones is a good successor from what we've seen in week 1 to Tua Tagovailoa. Kellen Mond is the key to this game, though. Kellen Mond has led his team against Alabama in yardage and offensive percentage. So he has over 260 yards throughout the air, averaging against Bama. He averages 58% passing every time he plays Alabama. So he is the key to this Texas A&M squad if they so choose to try and dethrone the top-ranked Alabama this week. But with the offensive line issues for Texas A&M and Alabama having the top offensive line in the country, this is going to be a tough matchup. So what say you in the number 14 Texas A&M versus Bama game?
Well, what I appreciate about your show is how classy you keep it. So I said, let's go ahead and take that down a notch. So I went straight to Vegas for the line here.
Okay.
Right now, Alabama is laying 9.5 points,
Okay.
which I think is a travesty. Alabama is that they are disrespected a little bit, especially when you look at how people are talking about Clemson.
Yeah.
I think that they win by at least 2 scores and roll right over the mighty Jimbo Fishers. No question.
I completely agree with you there. I have Alabama by at least 2 touchdowns. I don't see this game being close at all, even though people are saying this is Kellen Mond's coming out party this year to be a top quarterback in this league. I've not seen it last year. I don't feel like we're going to see it this year, especially against Alabama. This is an easy one for me. If you're betting today, this is an easy bet, Bama going your way. All right, moving down to, well, I guess kind of hometown Memphis, as we, are from Tennessee. Number 25, Memphis versus SMU. Now, Memphis has one of the best offenses in the ACC, and that does not change this year. Brady White tossed 4 touchdowns in his opening day game. They have 2 receivers in Dykes and Coxey, who are probably first and second round picks, most experts are saying. So they have the weapons on the outside. They remind me of Bama a little bit in the sense that they always have a 260-pound running back that can catch out of the backfield. That just seems like he's an NFL lock every year. Although SMU does have a returning senior star quarterback for them, it is not their quarterback that really surprises a lot of people. It is their running back, Ulysses Bentley, who is averaging over 20 yards a carry. He has 380 yards throughout the first 3 games of their season and 7 touchdowns. So that is almost unheard of. That is on Heisman watch already for that young man right there. They're the only team averaging 500 yards in the ACC as well. So SMU is rolling on all things offense, but they're going up against a very tough Memphis football team. So what say you in game number 2 of the day?
I think you have to go Memphis on this. Memphis always starts the year off strong, and then about midway through, they'll go on a losing streak that takes them out of all the top 25s. But we're still early in the year, so you got to roll Memphis, especially when they're getting 4.5 points from Vegas.
That is a very good point, and this is something that I'm going to kind of go with my gut here, and I have in a couple weeks, and I've been right. So I'm going to go SMU in a shootout, 47-40. It's going to come down to which quarterback can make the best throw, because we know that Memphis is going to probably stack the box. We know that SMU is going to try and stack the box. So it's going to be a dual threat quarterback situation. Which quarterback can make the best plays? I trust the senior and Shane Buechele for these SMU. What are they? I know there's a horse. That's all. Mustangs. That's right.
There you go.
I trust the Mustangs in this one in a shootout, although it is very hard for me because I do believe, like you said, Memphis tends to play on high for games 1 through 6, drops off out of the, loses 2 or 3 straight and then comes back and plays a decent bowl game. But I'm going to go opposite you here and just go SMU 47-40 in a very fun shootout game. This might be the game of the day for me. Moving on, we are going to go to number 18, Oklahoma, who had a surprising loss last week. They are playing Iowa State. First off, it's a battle of line of scrimmage. Oklahoma, their offensive line, to put it nicely, is kind of like the border wall. Everybody's coming through. Spencer Rattler was nearly pressured, sacked, or hit on 38% of his drop attempts last week. So that means Spencer Rattler, who's supposed to be this great quarterback, is not getting a chance to even throw the ball without getting hit, knocked, or pressured on almost 2 out of every 5 offensive plays. So it's kind of hard to be successful when that is happening. Leaving him very little room for success, Spencer Rattler still put up some pretty good numbers in week 1. Had a couple of costly turnovers, as we've seen. The one that actually sealed the game was the missed throw behind the wide receiver that got picked. Sealed the deal. Kansas State, for the second year in a row, takes down Oklahoma. I'm looking at this game not more so on what Iowa State can do, because Brock Purdy, as we have talked about on this show, is a good quarterback. He is a trusted quarterback. Most people are saying he is a lock in the top 2 rounds this coming NFL draft season. But I think this is more going to be a venge game than it is going to be a rivalry game. I see Oklahoma coming out here and trying to put it on them after they were not only upset last week, but they felt a little disrespected by the media by dropping all the way to 18. So this one for me is going to be Oklahoma in a blowout. I say Oklahoma by at least 3 touchdowns. What say you?
See, I have the opposite take on this.
Okay.
Vegas has given Oklahoma 10.5 points. 10.5 points is a high number, especially after seeing what I saw last week.
Yeah.
I think that you have solid quarterback play at Iowa State and a solid team, and an Oklahoma team that I just don't think is ready to play with the big dogs yet. So I think we're going to have Iowa State with the points. Oklahoma may squeak out a win, but I would take Iowa State with the points.
This is definitely an interesting matchup, because this is the first Oklahoma team we have seen since probably Baker Mayfield's second year where they're actually struggling against competition to move the football. And that's what's interesting to me, is they don't have a track record of not being able to put up points. So that is why I think last week, in my mind at least, I'm putting it more so as a fluke until I see repetitive, failing. I'm going to stick with my gut and say that Oklahoma tries and not only tries, but gets it back on track this week. But this could be a telltale sign of Oklahoma finally coming back down to reality. For so many years, we've just seen, offenses that put up 620 yards and 40 points, even against the best of them. So I think this is an interesting teeter-totter point. This could be coming down to earth for Oklahoma, or this could be taking off and getting right back to where they are. So we're going to go opposite here, but I appreciate what you said, because that is something that I wrestle with all night, is this Oklahoma team does not come off the page to me. So definitely a close one there. And we're going to go to another game that I think might be closer than most people think. Number 12, North Carolina versus Boston College. Finally, after 3 weeks, North Carolina is back and on the field. Of course, with all the COVID complications, they got to play their week 1 game against Syracuse, but they are finally back and well rested as they should be. From the body of work we saw with North Carolina in game 1, and they've been hyped up, they've been talked about. They only scored 10 points through the first 3 quarters against a horrible Syracuse team, against a Syracuse team that most people are saying is going to be last in their division. So offensively, they struggled. This offense is loaded, though, with Sam Howell at quarterback. They've got the deep threat on the wide receiver core, and then they've got studded running backs and Michael Carter and Devontae Williams. They have all the pieces to be great, but Boston College does return 5 of its starters on the offensive line. Their defense is returning 6 starters. Although they do not have the offensive power that they lost a lot to the draft, they still seem to be an annoying little gnat that continually comes at you throughout an entire game. This is an interesting matchup for me. I'm going to go North Carolina 21-14 in a grind out game. I just say Sam Howell makes one extra throw that really puts them over the top. So what say you?
So this is interesting because obviously dealing in the COVID times, it's just an unprecedented thing.
Yeah.
So really this is where your starters and your coaching becomes important.
Mm-hmm.
North Carolina's got Mac Brown, about as tried and true as you can get.
Mm-hmm.
Vegas has given them 11.5 points, which I think is maybe a little bit generous.
Yeah.
But I think North Carolina comes out and really puts it on them. They have a couple extra weeks to prepare, a couple extra weeks of coaching. And Boston College is returning a lot of their starters, but they also were starting for Boston College. So, it is what it is.
I mean, I definitely agree with you. And their running game is their strong point, and they've only averaged 2.6 yards a carry, which is not going to get it done, especially against a high offensive power team like North Carolina. This thing could get ugly very quick. I don't know. This is going to be our first kind of situation where we get to see a team come off of a long layaway from COVID and then go right back on the field. Somebody, of course, I played in it. Having a layoff of more than 2 weeks for NFL players seems to be okay, but I don't know how it's going to affect the college game. I know a lot of these college kids are already technically NFL players, so it's really hard to assess that. But this will be our first real assessment of body of work of what a team does after a break. So this could be a blowout or a close one. It just depends on how these players come out and play. But I like the extra weeks of preparation. I love what North Carolina has going on over there, jumping up and recruiting for next season too. So not going to argue too much on that one. Now we're going to move on to South Carolina versus number 3 Florida. Number 3 Florida. I know that's it's just hard for me to think Florida in the top 5. Florida opened up its season with not only a massive slaughter against Ole Miss, but 51 points were dropped on the board with 3 touchdowns coming to Kyle Pitts, their tight end, who is going to be a stud in the NFL. Kyle Trask, of course, is leading the way for these Gators in disgusting fashion in week number 1. I mean, it was not only a show, it was Madden rookie mode a show. It was that good. Florida, 152 yards last year when playing South Carolina in the first half, but they always come out and dominate the second half. I see no drop off here. South Carolina plays them good till the halftime, and then the second it hits quarters 3, it just seems like Florida figures them out and takes off by 2 or 3 touchdowns. I have another 50-point drop for Florida today. I'm going to go 51-21 against South Carolina. Their defense looks great. There's just not much I can say bad about Florida. I have Florida possibly winning the SEC. I will make that assumption or that proclamation after week 4. So once they get 4 games in, I'm going to make that proclamation. But I really want to go with SEC winners for Florida this year.
So Vegas has given them 19.5 points, and this is the spread that I'm like, I'd probably go 22.
Yeah.
I think Florida comes out and just demolishes South Carolina.
Yeah.
Obviously, you got Will Muschamp in Florida coming back in, but I mean, at a certain point, it goes with the players you have on the field, and South Carolina just doesn't have the horses to be able to keep up with Florida.
100%.
I think Florida has the possibility, like you say, of really doing some damage in the SEC all the way up until they start playing the big guys, and South Carolina is not one of those big guys.
Yeah, and the way I looked at it is if South Carolina was struggling to score against a Tennessee team whose defense I do not really like in the SEC this year, they are going to have an even tougher time against a Florida defense that is stout, has at least 5 NFL players that we know of, and an offense that's just going to continually score every time they have the ball. So, I mean, there's just too much firepower here. This has got to be I'm saying another 50 point, and I almost want to put money on that because I want to see Florida just hang 50 all year. Out of all the SEC teams that I dislike, Florida honestly is not one of them. I don't care if that, I kind of like when they do well. Well, we are going to go to not only another SEC teams, but the game of the day. Number 7 Auburn versus number 4 Georgia. Bo Nix settled into the offense quite nicely last week with 233 yards throughout the air and 3 touchdowns in the second half. Although their defense is a little sluggish, I mean, they did lose 6 guys to the NFL, 3 of those coming in the first round. There's not a whole lot you can do there when you're losing so much talent on the defensive line. But they still seem to put the clamps on it when they needed to. They've got decent cornerback play. Their defensive line just seems to reload every year. Georgia's starter last week, DeJuan Mathis, he was taken out of the game, the freshman, and they put in the walk-on Stetton last week. So Georgia, with their uncertainty at quarterback, and Auburn with their consistent play, from last year to this year, they seem like they are going to be a tough out, especially for this Georgia team. What say you?
I say this is when we start talking about the big guys. You have Alabama and Clemson, who every year lose their entire team in the draft, and they don't take an off year. They just reload.
Yeah.
And I think right now you have Georgia, who's on the cusp of being one of those teams. Mm-hmm. So this is really the first real test is, are they just reloading, or do they got to take a trip to the store? I feel like Auburn is getting 4.5 points in this game.
Yeah.
And I feel like Gus Malzahn is always good for at least 1 touchdown to trickery. So I'm taking Auburn in a close one, just because you can't count out Gus. He's too sneaky, just too sneaky.
Well, first off, if you didn't watch last week, I saw Gus Malzahn in a sleeveless collared shirt and a tie coaching on the sidelines, not even a sweater vest over that mug. So anybody that is that confident enough to walk on a sideline with Ray-Bans, a checkered tie, and a sleeveless collared shirt is someone that has my trust, because that is someone who just does not care about life. But
that's how you know he's a football player. He's a football coach.
Yeah, 100%. He is somebody that walks around with a pencil throughout, in his ear throughout his entire life. But I 100% agree with you. This is the real test for Georgia. Last week, a lot of people were upset about the way they struggled through the first 2 quarters. But then, of course, we know that talent eventually prevailed and they slaughtered Arkansas. But this week is different because Auburn is not going to give them the chance to sit back in the first 2 quarters and put up points for them to finally come back. With uncertainty at quarterback, I feel like that plays a big part in this. I'm going to go Auburn 28-21 because, like you said, Gus Malzahn always has one little trick up his sleeve to really finish a game. We saw it last year against the Ducks where we had the chance to get it, and then the trick play happened, the great catch that we know and hate to this day as Oregon Ducks fans.
Never happened.
But, I mean, Auburn for me with Bo Nix at the helm is always going to be in that conversation to they're going to have a game where they knock off Alabama this year. They're going to have a game where they can really take control. And Georgia might be their first step in the better direction. They always seem to be good, but they need to be better every year. So this might be the year that Auburn gets it done and starts knocking down some of the bigger guys in the conference and does it with the consistency and talent as opposed to returning field goals or as opposed, for missed kicks or crazy plays. This might be the year Auburn settles in and proves that they are a team to beat in the SEC.
Well, and every year, Gus Malzahn's on the hot seat. They are ready to fire that guy after every game.
Yep.
And so there's something to say when that team always has a sense of urgency that they're playing with.
Yeah.
And I think it's going to show here today.
What I think, like you said, I think that's the mindset that he gives to his players is, listen, we can't wait, for week 6 when we have a miracle win against Alabama. We can't wait to try and get into the SEC championship or whatever it is. Like, we have to start winning now because, like you said, Gus Malzahn seems to always be, where can he go next year? And it's like, guys, he's still coaching here. Like, he's still got a job.
He won 8 games.
You won a good bowl game. Like, you're beating top teams. So my love for Gus Malzahn has slowly started to grow. Him and Mike Leach might be my 2 favorite people in all of college football. And we will definitely have you on later throughout the year because we have got to get to some Mike Leach football. And if his offense can continually put up 600-plus yards a week, I mean, there's not much more I can say.
Listen, it's either them or Florida to win.
100%. Yeah, I'm 100% behind you. Until Oregon football comes back, I'm a Florida or a Mississippi State fan. I know you are also betting on your Miami Hurricanes right now, right? With the turnover chain, the turnover bling on the fingers. So we are riding our dark horses while we are waiting for our Ducks to finally get back. But Steve, thank you so much for coming on. I love you, brother. This has been fun. I hope you all at home are enjoying this. Make sure you pick along on Instagram. Remember, chance to win cash prizes at the end of the year for the winner, and I have it on lock. There's not one perfect person yet. So out of all the people that have thought they have gotten perfect and messaged me, there's not one perfect picker yet. So maybe this week, one of us will get it done, either me or Steve. We will make sure we compare on Monday. But thanks so much, Steve, for joining us. Locker Room Faithful, thank you for listening and watching. Make sure you follow me on all my social medias. I will put Steve's social media as well attached if you ever want to keep up with him and see what awesome stuff he has going on. He has 3 beautiful daughters, my beautiful nieces, that need some love and attention on his social media. So make sure you follow him, give them some love. Love you guys. Have a great day. We here at the Locker Room thank you for joining us on this Saturday morning pick'em. If you would like to know how to play along at home, it is simple. You will now see a slide with all of my social media. Follow me on Instagram every Saturday morning and you can vote. At the end of the college football season, I will pick a winner for a cash prize for whoever gets the most right answers. So make sure you follow my social media. That is the only way to lock in your answer. You must follow and then join along and play.